The morning sun on Kethtos was not yellow like the sun on Earth. It was a deep blue, and it cast long purple shadows across the training grounds of the Valorian Academy. The Academy sat on the highest mountain of the planet, a place where the air was thin and the gravity was so heavy that most species needed special suits just to walk. But the soldiers here did not wear suits. They had been born to this world, or they had trained their bodies to accept it. Mina stood in a line with hundreds of other recruits. She was small compared to most of them. Her dark hair was pulled back tight, and her brown eyes looked straight ahead at the enormous gate that led to the training fields. Around her, creatures of all shapes and sizes waited for the first day of training to begin. There was a Vextar to her left, a being made of crystal and light, standing at least 3 meters tall. To her right was a Lyrian with purple skin and 4 eyes, all of them watching the gate with nervous excitement. Behind her came sounds of other beings, clicks and chirps and deep rumbling voices that made the ground shake. Mina was the only human in her training group. She was the only human in her entire cohort, as far as she could tell. She knew this because some of the other recruits had been staring at her since the moment she arrived at the academy 3 days ago. Not with interest or friendliness, with something that looked like confusion mixed with a little bit of pity. She had been told before she came here that humans were not wanted at the Valorian Academy. Her government had fought hard to get even one human in the door. Min-Ah had been chosen because she was strong and smart, and because she had shown that she did not break easily under pressure. But she knew the truth that no one said out loud. She was here because humans had to be tested. The Valorian Empire needed to know if humans were worth anything at all. The gate opened with a sound like thunder. A figure walked through it, and every recruit stood even straighter. This was Instructor Tarek, the most feared trainer at the academy. He had 4 arms which he used with perfect control. His skin was the color of dark metal, and his eyes were bright purple. He was tall, even compared to the tallest recruits, and he moved like a predator that knew it was the strongest thing in the room. Tarek's purple eyes moved slowly across the line of recruits. When those eyes passed over Mina, she felt them stop for just a moment. She saw something in his expression, a small twist of his mouth that might have been a smile, but it was not a nice smile. Then his eyes moved on, and she tried to breathe normally again. "I am Instructor Tarek," he said, and his voice was deep and carried across the training field without any effort. "You have come to the Valorian Academy because you believe you are strong. You believe you have what it takes to become soldiers of the Valorian Empire. But most of you are wrong. Most of you will not make it past the first week." He began to walk along the line of recruits, his 4 arms hanging at his sides. As he walked, he talked about the history of the academy, about the great soldiers who had come before them, about the natural order of the galaxy. The Vextors were born with bodies that could withstand extreme heat and pressure. The Lyrians had minds that could see across multiple dimensions. The Kethtians, Tarek's own people, had 4 arms and superior strength. They were all perfectly designed by billions of years of evolution to be exactly what they were. "But there are those among you," Tarek said, and now he was near Mina again, "who are not so perfectly designed. Those who come from weak worlds, from weak genetics, from weak bloodlines. Those who should not really be here." Mina kept her eyes forward. She did not look at Tarek, but she could feel his gaze on her. She knew he was talking about her. She knew that everyone in the line knew he was talking about her. "However," Tarek continued, "even the weak can learn something if they are beaten down hard enough. Even the soft can become hard if they are broken and reformed enough times. This is what we do here. We break you. We remake you. And if you are lucky, what walks out of this academy will be something worth something." The first week of training was exactly as bad as Mina had imagined it would be. She had to run across fields of black rock that burned her feet, even through her boots. She had to lift objects that weighed more than her entire body. She had to climb walls under heavy rain that turned to ice the moment it touched the cold ground. Other recruits fell around her. The Vextor to her left quit on the second day. Illyrian collapsed during the third run and had to be carried away by medical workers. But Minna did not quit. She had not come all this way to give up. She had not fought so hard to get into this academy just to walk away. Every time her body wanted to stop, she remembered what her mother had told her before she left Earth. "You have something special," her mother had said. "Not in your body, in your head, in your heart. You are Korean. Our people have survived for thousands of years by being tougher than anyone expected us to be. Show them that." On the seventh day, all the remaining recruits were called to the main training ground. Instructor Tarek stood at the center with several large boxes made of metal. His purple eyes looked out at the survivors with something that might have been approval, though Minna was not sure. "You have survived the first week," Tarek said. "You have shown that you are not completely useless. Now begins the real training. Today, we work with weapons." He opened the first box, and Minna's breath caught. Inside the box was something that looked like a sphere of pure energy, burning and moving like it could not decide whether it wanted to explode or collapse into itself. It was the size of a small melon, and it hung in the air above the box without anything holding it. "This," Tarek said, "is a plasma sphere. It is an unstable weapon. It is close to detonation at all times. It is unpredictable. It is dangerous. And today you will learn to hold one in your bare hand without protective equipment." The recruits did not move. No one spoke. Minna felt her heart begin to beat faster. This was the test. This was the moment when they would find out which of them had something real inside and which of them did not. Tarek's forearms moved, and he pointed at the largest recruit in the group, a Kethtian who looked almost as big as Tarek himself. "You, come forward." The recruit stepped forward. Tarek handed him the plasma sphere. Immediately, the Kethtian's face twisted in pain. His hand turned red. He held it for maybe 7 seconds before he threw it back to Tarek with a cry of pain. The sphere settled back into the box and went still. 7 seconds, Tarek said. "Pathetic. You are supposed to be built for this. And you last 7 seconds." One by one, recruits stepped forward and tried to hold the plasma sphere. The results were always the same. Burn marks appeared. Pain was visible on every face. No one lasted more than 12 seconds. With each failure, Minna felt the weight of what was coming. Sooner or later, Tarek would call on her. And when he did, she would have to hold that burning energy in her small, weak human hand. The line of recruits grew shorter as each one tried and failed to hold the plasma sphere for any meaningful amount of time. Minna watched from where she stood near the end of the group. Her hands were shaking, but she pressed them against her sides so no one could see. She had trained her whole life to be strong. She had learned to hide pain. She had learned to keep her fear locked deep inside where no one could reach it. But this was different. This was asking her to do something that seemed impossible. A tall Lyrian with deep blue skin stepped forward next. He took the sphere from Tarek with a confident expression, as if he believed that his superior mind could somehow protect him from the heat. But the moment the plasma touched his palm, his face changed. His confidence shattered. He lasted 15 seconds before his legs buckled and he collapsed to his knees. Medical workers rushed forward to help him stand and walk away. His hand was completely blackened, and Minna could smell burnt skin from where she stood. 15 seconds, Tarek announced. Still pathetic. A being with a mind that can see across dimensions, and he breaks like a child. More recruits came forward. 15, 16, 17. Each one performed similarly poorly. Some lasted a little longer than others, but none of them made it past 20 seconds. The pattern was clear. The plasma sphere was too hot. The pain was too much. Even beings with bodies designed for extreme conditions could not hold it for long. Then Tarek's purple eyes turned toward Minna. She had known this was coming. She had tried to prepare herself mentally, but nothing could have prepared her for the moment when she heard her name. "You," Tarek said, pointing one of his 4 arms directly at her. "The human. Step forward." The training ground went quiet. All the other recruits stopped moving. All their eyes turned toward Minna. She felt the weight of their attention like a physical thing pressing down on her shoulders. She knew what they were thinking. She could read it in their expressions. This was the moment when they would see if humans belonged here at all. This was the moment when she would either prove herself or confirm everything they already believed about her kind. Minna stepped forward. Her legs did not shake, even though she wanted them to. She walked toward Instructor Tarek with the same calm expression she had learned to keep on her face during the first week of training. She would not let them see her fear. She would not let them see her doubt. Tarek watched her approach. A small smile played at the corners of his mouth. He held out the plasma sphere, and Minna could feel the heat radiating from it even before she got close. The energy inside it was moving faster now, almost like it was excited, almost like it was eager to burn something. "You know what this is," Tarek said. It was not a question. "Yes, Instructor," Minna replied. "It is a plasma sphere, an unstable weapon close to detonation. And you know that every recruit before you has failed to hold it for more than a few seconds," Tarek continued. "The strongest among you, the beings with bodies designed for extreme conditions, have all broken. What makes you think you will do any better?" Minna looked at the sphere. She looked at Tarek's purple eyes. She thought about Earth, about the city of Seoul, where her family lived. She thought about her mother's words. She thought about the fact that she had come too far to turn back now. There was no going back. There was only forward. "I do not know if I will do better, Instructor," she said, "but I know I will try." Tarek's smile widened. He was enjoying this. He wanted to see her fail. He wanted to prove that humans did not belong here. Minna could see all of this clearly in his expression, but she did not care. She had not come here to make Instructor Tarek happy. She had come here to survive. She reached out and took the plasma sphere from his hand. The heat was like nothing she had ever felt before. It was not just hot. It was a burning that seemed to go deeper than her skin, deeper than her muscle, into some place she did not even know existed inside herself. Her hand turned red immediately. The smell of burning flesh filled her nostrils. She wanted to scream. Everything inside her was telling her to throw the sphere away, to stop the pain, to make it stop. But she did not throw it away. 5 seconds passed. Her hand was now bright red, almost purple with burns. The pain was so intense that her vision started to blur at the edges. But she could see Tarek's face, and she could see his expression changing. He was surprised. He had not expected her to last this long. 10 seconds. Her hand was blistering now. The skin was breaking open in places. Blood was starting to mix with the burnt flesh. The pain had moved past the point of being just pain. It was now something else, something so intense that it almost felt like nothing at all. Her mind was separating from her body, watching from somewhere far away. 15 seconds. Other recruits were starting to move, to shift their weight, to look at each other with expressions of disbelief on their faces. They had not thought a human could do this. They had been certain that Minna would last maybe 3 seconds before screaming and throwing the sphere away. But here she was, holding it, her hand completely destroyed, her face showing almost no emotion. 20 seconds. Tarek's smile had disappeared. His 4 arms had gone very still. He was watching her with an intensity that made the rest of the world seem to fade away. There was something in his eyes now that had not been there before, something that might have been respect, or something that might have been fear. Minna's whole body was shaking now. Sweat was running down her face. Her breathing was coming in short gasps. The hand holding the plasma sphere was so damaged that she could barely feel it anymore. The nerves were shutting down, unable to process the level of pain they were receiving. But still she held on. 25 seconds. Tarek said nothing. He simply watched. And then Minna did something that no recruit had done before. She looked directly into Tarek's purple eyes, and she spoke. "Instructor," she said, her voice steady and calm, "I am ready for detonation." The entire training ground froze. No recruit had ever asked for detonation. Detonation meant letting the sphere collapse, letting all its energy release. Detonation meant the pain would end, but it would end in the worst way possible. Tarek's expression did not change for a moment. But then, slowly, his lips curved upward into a smile. Not a cruel smile this time. Something different. "Honor demands that I honor your request," he said. He raised one of his forearms and made a small gesture toward the sphere in her hand. The plasma sphere began to collapse. The energy inside it began to compress, to pull in on itself. Minna felt it before she saw it. She felt the moment when everything changed. The moment when the sphere stopped being a weapon she was holding and became something else entirely. The moment when it became an explosion. The explosion did not happen the way everyone expected. There was no massive blast that threw people across the training ground. There was no fireball that rose into the blue sky of Kethtos. Instead, the plasma sphere simply collapsed inward in Minna's hand, and all of its energy released at once in a contained burst that seemed to happen in a moment that lasted both a second and an eternity. Minna felt the energy move through her body like lightning. It burned everything it touched. Her hand was destroyed completely. The bones in her forearm cracked and shattered. The muscles in her arm twisted and burnt away. The pain was so enormous, so complete, that her mind simply shut down part of its function to protect itself. She could see what was happening to her body, but she could not feel most of it. There was only the overwhelming sensation of heat and the sound of her own voice crying out. Then, just as suddenly as it had started, it was over. The plasma sphere was gone. The energy was gone. There was only Minna standing in the middle of the training ground, her right arm completely destroyed from the hand to above the elbow. Her skin was black and charred. Parts of her arm showed bone. Parts of it showed things that should not have been visible to the light. She looked down at what used to be her hand, and then she looked up at Instructor Tarek. His purple eyes were wider now. His expression had changed completely from cruelty to something that looked like shock. He said nothing for a long moment. Then he touched something on his suit, and a voice responded from somewhere. "Medical emergency at Training Ground 7, he said quietly. "Send the healing team. Bring the main chamber." Minna's legs gave out. She fell to her knees, and that was when the full weight of the pain finally hit her. Now her body understood what had happened. Now her mind returned to reality and realized the extent of the damage. She wanted to scream, but no sound came out. She had used up all her ability to scream during the moment when the sphere was collapsing in her hand. The medical team arrived within minutes. They were not human doctors. They were Valorian medical workers, beings who had been trained to treat almost any kind of injury. They looked at Minna's arm with expressions that she could not quite read. Pity, maybe, or disbelief, or both. They took her to the healing chamber, a large room filled with machines that floated in the air like strange jellyfish. They placed her arm inside a field of blue light, and the pain immediately started to become less sharp. Not to go away, just to become manageable, to become something she could bear. Time passed. Minna was not sure how much time. Days, maybe, or weeks. She drifted in and out of consciousness, pulled between the healing fields and sleep and dreams that were not really dreams because her mind was so full of pain that it could not imagine anything else. But slowly something began to happen. Slowly her arm started to heal. The doctors who worked on her were amazed. They had never seen anything like it before. Human bodies were supposed to be weak. Human bodies were supposed to heal slowly. But Mina's body seemed to understand on a level that went deeper than thought that it had to repair itself quickly or die. Her cells began to multiply at a rate that the doctors had never seen before in any species. Her bones began to knit themselves back together. The burnt skin began to grow back. It was not pretty. It was not perfect. But it worked. After 3 weeks, she could move her fingers. After 4 weeks, she could make a fist. After 6 weeks, she could walk and move her arm without it causing her to pass out from pain. But the damage was not completely healed. The Valorian doctors told her that some of the damage was too severe to fix completely. There would be scars. There would be limits to what her hand could do. There would always be reminders of what she had done in that moment on the training ground. Mina did not care about the scars. The day she left the healing chamber, she was called to Instructor Tarek's office. It was a large room with windows that looked out over the entire academy. The blue sun of Kethtos was setting, and the shadows were turning a deep purple. Tarek was standing at the window when she entered. He did not turn around for a long moment. When he finally did, his purple eyes looked different than they had before. Softer, maybe. Or simply more thoughtful. "I have been studying human biology," he said without any greeting. "After what happened with you, the medical team sent their reports to me. They are very interesting." Mina said nothing. She stood at attention, the way she had been trained to do in the first week at the academy. "Do you know what they discovered?" Tarek asked. "When they studied the way your arm healed?" "No, Instructor," Mina replied. "They discovered something about human beings that we did not understand before," Tarek continued. He walked toward her, his forearms moving with a grace that suggested he was thinking deeply about something. "Humans do not have superior thermoregulation. They do not have hardened skin. They do not have the genetic advantages that we believed all strong species must have." He paused. He was standing very close to her now. "But humans have something else," he said. "Something that is actually more valuable. Humans have an ability to adapt to stress that goes beyond normal healing. Your cells, when faced with extreme injury, can increase their reproduction rate. Your nervous system can compartmentalize pain so that it does not completely shut down your body. Your mind can separate from sensation to keep you functioning even when you are experiencing trauma that would cause other species to simply stop working." Tarek walked around her slowly, studying her from all angles. "In other words," he said, "humans are not strong because they are born strong. Humans are strong because they are forced to be strong. Because your world is dangerous and unpredictable. Because survival is never guaranteed. This creates in you an ability to survive that other species have never needed to develop." He stopped in front of her again. "I was wrong about you," Tarek said. "I was wrong about your people. Not because humans are superior, but because I did not understand what strength actually is. I thought strength came from having better genes, better bodies, better natural advantages. But I was looking at strength the wrong way. Your people have shown me that strength also comes from will, from refusing to break when breaking is the logical choice." Mina felt something shift inside her. Some weight that she had been carrying since the moment she arrived at this academy began to lighten. "I want you to do something," Tarek said. "I want you to help me change the way we train soldiers here. I want you to work with G1, the engineer from Earth. I want you to show the other instructors what you have shown me, that different is not weak, that different is simply different, and that sometimes different is exactly what we need. News of what Minna had done spread through the academy like fire through dry grass. By the next morning, every recruit, every instructor, every worker in the academy knew that a human had held a plasma sphere. Every one of them knew that she had asked for detonation. Every one of them knew that she had survived. The reactions were mixed. Some recruits looked at Minna with new respect when they saw her walking across the training grounds with her bandaged hand. Others still looked at her with doubt. They told themselves that it had been luck. They told themselves that it had been a mistake, that she had done something wrong and gotten away with it. But deep down, all of them knew what they had really seen. They had seen a human push past the limits that supposedly defined their species. Within a week, Ji-won found Minna in the medical observation area, where she was still spending time each day allowing the doctors to monitor her healing. Ji-won was tall for a human, with short black hair and intelligent brown eyes. She wore the uniform of an engineer, not a combat soldier. She smiled when she saw Minna, a real smile, not the careful expression that most people wore around her now. "I saw what you did," Ji-won said without any greeting. She sat down beside Minna and looked at her scarred hand. "That was the most incredible and stupidest thing I have ever heard of. You could have died." "I know," Minna replied. She was still getting used to being able to speak normally again. For weeks after the explosion, her throat had been too damaged to do much more than whisper. "Tarek is reorganizing the entire training program," Ji-won continued. "He says he wants humans to have equal opportunity in the academy. He says the way they have been testing and training soldiers is wrong. And I think you scared him. I think he realized that he did not understand what humans are capable of." Minna looked at Ji-won. "Will they really change things? Or will they just pretend to change things?" "I think they will really change," Ji-won said. She leaned back and crossed her arms. "But I think they will need help. I think they need someone to show them exactly how to do it. And I think Tarek wants that someone to be you." Over the next month, Minna worked with Ji-won to study human strengths in combat. It was not about brute force. It was not about trying to make humans into something they were not. Instead, it was about understanding what humans did uniquely well. Ji-won showed the instructors data about human flexibility. While other species had bodies that were rigid or crystalline or otherwise inflexible, human bodies could move in ways that were unexpected. A Lyrian could not bend the way a human could. A Kethtian could not move their joints the way humans could. This meant that humans could fight in ways that seemed almost impossible to other species. They could slip out of holds that should have trapped them. They could maneuver through spaces that should have been too small. Minna worked with other human recruits to develop new fighting techniques. She taught them how to use their flexibility and pain tolerance to do things that seemed crazy to other soldiers. She taught them that sometimes the best way to survive was not to be stronger than your enemy, but to be able to keep moving and keep fighting when your enemy thought you should have stopped. Kwon was one of the first humans to really understand what she was teaching. He was a quiet man from Seoul, and he had been terrible at every standard combat test they had given him. But when they started testing marksmanship, everything changed. Kwon's eyes worked differently than most species' eyes. Humans could see color and depth and movement in ways that were subtle but important. Kwon could predict where a moving target would be before it actually got there. He could shoot with an accuracy that no other recruit had shown, not even the Lyrians with their multidimensional sight. There was also Hei Jin, a woman who had come to the academy as a pilot candidate. She had been struggling with the combat tests, but when they moved her to the piloting simulations, her performance became extraordinary. She could feel the machine as if it were an extension of her body. She could predict enemy movements with an intuition that seemed almost impossible. Tarek brought in the Academy's psychologists to study her, and they discovered something interesting. Humans had an ability to read social cues and predict behavior that came from millions of years of living in small groups. This same ability that made humans good at understanding each other also made them exceptional at predicting the behavior of thinking opponents. As more human recruits began to excel, other species started to pay attention. The Lyrians began to ask themselves why they had been so focused on testing raw mental power when they could have been testing problem-solving ability. The Kethtians began to wonder if their assumption about strength being the most important quality was actually correct. Other species that had been rejected from the Academy for not fitting the standard metrics began to petition for reconsideration. But not all of the instructors were happy about these changes. Some of them had built their entire understanding of military training around a specific set of assumptions about what made soldiers strong. Having those assumptions questioned felt like a personal attack. They argued that changing the training program would weaken the Academy. They said that Tarek was being influenced too much by a single recruit's unusual abilities. One instructor, a being named Vosh, who had gray skin and sharp teeth, confronted Tarek in front of other instructors. "You are throwing away centuries of tradition," Vosh said, his voice angry and loud. "You are allowing one human girl to change everything we know about what it means to be a soldier. This is weakness. This is betrayal of everything the Academy stands for." Tarek looked at Vosh with an expression that was calm and completely unmoved. "I am throwing away bad tradition," Tarek replied. "I am replacing it with something better, and if you cannot see the value in that, then you are not fit to be an instructor here." Vosh left the Academy 3 days later. So did 2 other instructors who agreed with him. But their departure seemed to clear the way for faster change. New training protocols were developed, new recruitment policies were created. Within 2 months, 10 more humans had been admitted to the Academy. Within 4 months, there were 50 human recruits. Within 6 months, the Academy had changed in ways that seemed both small and enormous all at the same time. Minna was promoted to the rank of training instructor. She was the youngest instructor in the Academy's history. She was also the first human to hold such a position. She stood before her first class of mixed recruits, humans and Kethtians and Lyrians and a dozen other species, and she looked at their faces. Some of them were still skeptical. Some of them were here because they had no other choice. Some of them were here because they actually believed that humans might have something valuable to teach them. And Mina understood that this was how change happened. It was not overnight. It was not dramatic. It was simply one person doing something that other people thought was impossible. And then another person doing something they thought was impossible. And then another. Until eventually, what seemed impossible became normal. Until eventually, what seemed crazy became just the way things were done. Word of the changes at the Valorian Academy eventually reached the highest levels of the Valorian government. The High Command, the military leaders who ran the entire empire, wanted to know what was happening. They wanted to know why an ancient and respected training facility was suddenly reorganizing its entire system. They wanted to know if Instructor Tarek had made the right decision or if he had made a terrible mistake. The High Command decided to test the Academy's new methods. They organized a competition. The Academy's reformed human unit, trained by Mina and other instructors who had embraced the new understanding of strength, would face off against the Valorian Empire's most elite legion. This elite legion was made up of soldiers who had been chosen from thousands of candidates. They had been genetically optimized for combat. They had been training their entire lives specifically to become perfect soldiers. They had the best weapons, the best armor, and the best technology that the Valorian Empire could produce. The competition would take place on a vast simulation world, a planet that could be programmed to create any environment or scenario. The simulation would last for 1 week. The 2 armies would have to complete a series of objectives. They would have to capture territory. They would have to defend positions. They would have to solve tactical problems that had no easy answers. At the end of the week, whoever had completed the most objectives and maintained the most control would be declared the winner. Mina stood before her unit and told them about the competition. They were 30 soldiers, men and women, all humans. They had trained together for 6 months. They knew each other's abilities and limitations. They knew how to work as a team in ways that most military units did not. "The Elite Legion has 500 soldiers," Mina said. They were standing in a circle, and the blue sun of Kethtos was setting behind the distant mountains. "We have 30. They have better armor, better weapons, and better physical advantages. They have been training their entire lives to do exactly one thing, to be soldiers. We cannot beat them by trying to be exactly like them." "Then what do we do?" asked Quan. His scarred hand was still healing, a mirror image of Mina's own scars, but he had earned it through a different kind of test. "We do what humans do," Mina replied. "We adapt. We think. We work together in ways that other species cannot. We find their weaknesses and we exploit them. We do not try to be stronger. We are smarter. And that, I believe, will be enough." The first day of the simulation was difficult. The Elite Legion attacked with overwhelming force. They had numbers, technology, and tactical knowledge that was centuries old. They drove Mina's unit back across the terrain of the simulation world. They captured the first major objective point, a fortress built into a mountainside. Mina's soldiers lost 5 people, though they were not really dead, just eliminated from the simulation. But Mina had learned something important by watching them fight. The Elite Legion was rigid. They followed their tactics by the book. They did things the way they had always been done. They did not adapt quickly to unexpected situations. So Mina changed her strategy. Instead of trying to win through direct combat, she used human creativity. They set up ambushes in places where the Elite Legion did not expect to find soldiers. They used the terrain in ways that the larger, stronger soldiers could not. They coordinated their movements through a network of communication that was less efficient than technology, but far more flexible. Humans could change tactics on the fly. Humans could make decisions based on intuition and experience in ways that made their movements unpredictable. By the third day, the battle had shifted. Mina's unit had captured 2 objective points back from the Elite Legion. They had eliminated another 100 soldiers from the simulation through careful planning and execution. The Elite Legion was starting to show signs of confusion. Their tactics were not working as well as they had before. Their opponents were not following the usual patterns of combat. Quan had become central to their success. His ability to see angles and trajectories that other people missed meant that he could identify weak points in the Elite Legion's defensive positions. He could find paths through their lines that should not have existed. He could put his soldiers exactly where they needed to be to have the maximum effect. Jin, who had been included in Mina's unit as a tactical advisor despite her background in piloting, had started to predict the Elite Legion's movements. She could understand their commanders' thinking because she understood how commanders thought. She could anticipate what they would do next and prepare for it. By the 5th day, something remarkable had happened. Mina's unit was winning. The competition drew the attention of the entire Valorian Empire. Broadcasts of the simulation were shown across the galaxy. Citizens and military personnel and government officials all watched as a small group of humans not only survived against the Elite Legion, but actually started to defeat them. The disbelief was visible on the faces of commanders who watched from the viewing platforms. This was not supposed to be possible. The Elite Legion's leadership became desperate. On the 6th day, they decided to commit all their remaining forces to a single massive assault against Mina's unit. It was a gamble. If it worked, they would win. If it did not work, they would lose everything. Mina knew this was coming. She had expected it. She had prepared for it. She positioned her soldiers not in a defensive formation, but in a way that was specifically designed to make the massive assault as inefficient as possible. Her soldiers moved through the terrain like water moving around rocks. They bent and flowed and adapted moment by moment as the elite legion came at them. The battle raged for 6 hours. When it ended, the elite legion had suffered catastrophic losses. More than 400 of their soldiers had been eliminated from the simulation. Minna's unit had lost 12 soldiers. But more importantly, they had beaten back the assault. They had proven that they could not only survive against the elite legion, but they could defeat them. On the 7th day of the competition, it was over. Minna's unit controlled 5 out of the 8 objective points on the simulation world. The elite legion had been almost completely destroyed. Survivors were scattered across the map with no effective command structure. It was not just a victory. It was a decisive, complete, impossible victory. When the simulation ended and the soldiers logged out of the virtual world, the entire viewing chamber fell silent. High Command officials looked at each other with expressions of shock and confusion. This was not what was supposed to happen. The elite legion was supposed to dominate. The small human unit was supposed to provide a challenge and then lose. Instead, the humans had won. Instructor Tarek stood as the results were being announced. His 4 arms were still, his purple eyes focused on the High Command officials who were trying to make sense of what they had just witnessed. "The data is clear," Tarek said, his voice calm and steady. "The soldiers trained using the new methods, soldiers who were taught to use the strengths of their own species rather than to fit a predetermined mold, have defeated the soldiers trained using the old methods. This is not an accident. This is not because humans are superior. This is because different approaches create different results. This is because strength comes in forms that we did not previously recognize." One of the High Command officials, a being with crystalline skin and a voice that sounded like wind through ice caves, spoke. "These new methods, they could be applied to other soldiers, to other species?" "Yes," Tarek replied. "The principles are simple. Each species has strengths and weaknesses. The old way was to try to make every soldier fit a standard template of what a soldier should be. The new way is to understand each species' unique abilities and to build on those. A human's flexibility is different from a Lyrian's insight, which is different from a Kethtian's strength. But all 3 have value. All 3 have their place in a military unit that truly understands what strength is." The High Command voted that same day. They voted to reorganize the entire Valorian military along the new principles. They voted to send instructors like Minna to other academies, to other military installations, to share what they had learned. They voted to recruit from species that had previously been rejected. They voted to fundamentally change the way the Valorian Empire understood strength and combat. And it all started because one human girl held a plasma sphere in her hand and refused to let go.